Today, we are going to talk about the five-step client journey, which I am super excited about. So, before we get into it, can you introduce yourself to us and tell us a little bit about what you do and who you help?
Yeah, first off, thanks for having me. So excited. So yes, I am a virtual assistant and business coach for service providers. I started my business in 2017 and had no idea about the business world. And now that I'm in it, I'm obsessed with it, love it, couldn't imagine not being in it. And yeah, it's really fun. In my VA side, I primarily do blog management. And then in my coaching side, I help service providers create retainers. And through that retainer service, we look at both the marketing side and the client journey systems, which I know we're going to get into as well. But yeah, they're the two sides, and I love having both because as I coach, it helps me be a better coach because I'm like still in the industry of doing the client work and managing team that does client work. So yeah, I love having both.
Amazing. I love that. And I completely agree with you. It's why I never give up my agency side too, right? Not like active participation in what's working
Yeah.
helps you just be a better coach. So, I completely get it. When you say client retainers, can we dive a little bit more into what exactly that means?
Yeah, so retainer services, of course, it better suits some businesses than others. But essentially, it's just a service that someone pays for on a recurring basis. So, like, for example, blog management, I deliver a result every single month and they pay every single month compared to something like, a website where they just do it once and it's done. So I really focus on the retainer side because that's where I have just found for myself and my business and my personality that style of service really helps me because then I know like I have a bit more predictability in income, a little bit less marketing. So yeah, I love that part.
Yeah, I agree with you. Monthly recurring revenue, right? That's how we can support our business.
So good.
But yeah, exactly. By knowing that we have that predictable income, right? And make better
Yeah.
decisions on it. So when you're helping clients with this like retainer, because you said you do that on the coaching side, right? Is helping them
Yeah.
build these retainer programs. What kind of do you talk about in terms of like what makes a good container? I know you started briefly talking about the client journey there, and I'm sure that has a lot to do with it.
hmm Yeah, a client journey is huge because at the end of the day, a retainer, like your main aim is to retain the client. So you want them to stay on an ongoing basis. So client journey is a huge part of it. The other part though is actually having a really good package. Like I know it sounds really obvious, but for someone to like want to stay in that package, and so a lot of the work we do in the first place is actually looking at who you want to target because that's going to really dictate your pricing, what they feel comfortable with, paying on a recurring basis and making the retainer a no-brainer for the client in terms of it's solving a clear problem, but also a no-brainer for you to deliver on in the back end. Because I think a lot of times we like have deliverables that kind of aren't necessary anyway. So just making sure that it's going to be easy to manage on the back end, either with you or team or things like that. But client journey is a huge part of it because it makes it feel lighter and easier to carry these clients every single month.
Yeah, and I want to get into the five steps of the client journey in a second. But
hmm
before we get into that, you kind of mentioned, having the right type of retainer and not putting too much in there that's going to make it hard to deliver. And I think this is something that as like people who are listening to this who run an agency or want to have more retainer kind of packages might fall into, because it's a trap I've fallen into in the past too, is having too many deliverables or making your offer too complicated, which makes it hard to scale. So what would be
Yeah.
kind of your advice on that for people who are listening to this and are like, that's me?
Yeah, 100%. Because, like, I feel like, I mean, I did this too. You like jam pack the offer so it's super valuable or worth the price point as such. But I have found, honestly, the more simple offer, the easier it is to sell. And the longer the lifespan of the client. So, I guess some general tips is market research is a huge part of it. And you can do that through like just generally asking people what they want in packages. But the other part is actually really listening on sales calls or paying attention to what people are using and not using, right? And so when I was like in the first stages of kind of creating my offer, I would be spending so much time trying to deliver like all these extra bits. And I realized some of them weren't being used. And so I would actually ask myself, this part of the offer is really time consuming for me. Is there a way to make it easier or slightly tweak the way I'm delivering that part? B, is it necessary? Like, is the client using it? Are they wanting it? You know, that kind of thing. And number three is it actually going to impact their results if I remove it? So like, for example, I actually had a conversation with a client yesterday about it. She's a blog manager, but helps like repurpose. So I was doing like Instagram story graphics and these graphics and an Instagram post and all the things. And she found that people weren't really using certain aspects of it. So we looked at, okay, can we remove that, that, and that? And then could we repurpose the Pinterest graphics that you're currently doing to be Instagram stories? Like just looking at how you can make something easier and lighter if you can't fully remove something because it's going to impact their results. So they're kind of the factors I look at when you're doing the package, is just inquiring and asking yourself, like imagining a picture of that package without it. But if you remove it fully, is that going to impact the seller? Like, you know, is it going to impact sales? Is it going to impact results? Are huge factors to consider.
Oh my gosh, that was so much gold that you just said. And really, it's simple. Everything you're saying is very simple, but sometimes we make things so complicated in our heads, right? One, like ask your people, is this really what you want? Because we might think it's this like super juicy offer, but really it's not what they're looking for at all. So number one, ask your audience. And number two is that, you know, thinking about it from a results focus, which I love that you said that, instead of, oh, this is just complicated for me to create or to deliver on. It's like, even if it's complicated to deliver on, is it crucial to the client's result? Because if it is, it needs to stay in there. And how can we think smarter of other ways to take the bulk out of our offer? And I love that you said that. So if anyone's listening to that and you identify with feeling like you have a retainer model that isn't quite working for you, those tips were gold, and definitely re-listen to this episode. So now that we know, okay, what makes a good retainer, we touched a little bit about client journey. So do you want to start walking us through, like, what are the 5 steps that you think are an effective client journey?
Yes, for sure. I'm obsessed with talking client journey because I think it's like so many people in the industry that either super self-care or super client care that they burn themselves out, or super self-care that like it's so them focused that at the end of the day the client is like, hey, I'm paying you, like, you know. So we've got to find that balance, and I find these 5 steps help do that. So the first step is the pitch. So this is where client is actually going to find you. So this is all the marketing aspects. So the biggest question you're asking in this is, how can someone easily find me and reach out to me? So a big part of this step is, again, as you can tell, I'm probably a very simple business owner, but I'm going to keep hammering it home, is to not overcomplicate this step. Like, I know you are an amazing at marketing, so you probably know way more about this than me, but I will say that, like, you know, a lot of people say, don't put all your eggs in one basket when it comes to marketing. And yes, 100%. But also you don't want to be carrying around like 10 different baskets. So I do suggest that, like, you want to think about what are like 1 to 3 key marketing strategies that I can use to help attract my ideal clients in a simple, easy way. Because, you know, if you're a service provider, promoting services is a very different strategy to promoting courses. So you want to think about what makes the most sense for services, and then being able to have a simple way of them reaching out. I find an inquiry form on your website to be the easiest way to gather that information. I know other ways is things like DMs, if you're on Instagram, that kind of thing. But a lead form is the easiest because that gets you the most information in the most simplest form, and it's kind of all streamlined in your backend. So that's the first step, is that pitch and gathering that lead. And then the next phase is persuade. So now they've like put their hand up and they're like, yes, I'm interested in this service. Or you've directly pitched them and said, here's a service. And they've said, yeah, I'm interested. Then you want to persuade. So this piece is all about actually for you figuring out if they're a good client, but also, of course, for them to figure out if you're a good fit. So there's obviously multiple ways to do this. I find a sales call, like 20-minute connection call, to be the easiest way to do it, just because I found, if I'm doing, back and forth in the DMs or something like that, it takes a lot longer for me because there's obviously back and forth waiting for them. And I just find if it's 20 minutes on a call, I can really get to know them clearly. They can get to know me. I can articulate my package, and then they can make a decision. So that I have found for me the easiest part. But then also, not just the sales conversation is the persuade, but also then following up in a quick way with a proposal where it's super easy for them to sign your contract, pay the invoice, and say yes to working with you. Because I find, I don't know about you, but I have been on sales calls and then it will take them like 2-3 days to then send me the proposal for me to sign the contract, and by that time I've actually kind of overthought it, and I'm like, nah, I don't really need this, I don't know. So you really want to, my goal is always, after a sales call, I'm gonna get a proposal to them within 10 minutes. That's kind of my goal. And you can template, oh my gosh, can't speak this morning, but you can create a template, let's use that word, create a template with your proposal and that follow-up email to make it super easy and simple to do. But that's kind of that persuade piece, is both sales conversation and then the follow-up to make it very easy for them to have that conversation with you. And to sign and book. So that's kind of the two-step client journey before they've actually said yes. And then the third step is, now they have signed the contract, paid the invoice. Now the next phase is onboarding. And I find onboarding, service providers either have nailed it, or it gives them headaches. They want to pull their hair out because they realize, oh, I've got this question, or oh, I don't have that piece, or so many aspects. So to make onboarding really simple, the easiest thing is, and I know, again, this sounds very simple and easy to do, but if you can have these things, it's going to make it very streamlined. So the first thing is an automated welcome email. And this can be literally generated from a, CRM, making it personalized, from their system. So saying their name, in the email, all of that kind of thing. And at the time you deliver that welcome email, you're just saying, I'm so excited, all the things. Here are your clear next steps. Don't a million different places they need to go, and this, and then find this, and then this. What you want to do is have every piece of onboarding they need to do in one form. So for example, if they need to share passwords with you, have that as a tick box in the form to say, yes, I've shared this, and this with you. And then, if they need to share, I don't know, something to their branding in a Google Drive, get them to do that in the onboarding form and put it there. So you've just got that one onboarding form central place where everything is. And you can literally make anything in your onboarding form that they need to do. And then, so that's the first phase of send the automated welcome email with the form. And then the second part to onboarding is then actually reviewing that form, making sure you have everything. And if you need to, obviously it depends on your service and what you offer, but if you need to do password checks or things like that to set them up ready to go, you want to have clear timelines and dates of when you're going to do that, so that it's very simple. So for example, in my business, we have that they need to complete onboarding within 7 days. So then after that, I have a time, my team and I have a time that we look at that, and then we review, we set a time with them of when we're going to do password checks and all of that. And then we have like a first month email that goes out where it's like, here's reviewing your pin design templates for our blog, your cover design templates for your blog, like just those kind of nitty gritty things where it's all packaged up, ready to go, but it's not like multiple emails that are going on. And then so that's phase 3. So far we've done pitch, persuade, deliver, onboard. And then the fourth phase is deliver. Now this is very dependent on your service. And but essentially you're wanting to ask yourself, how can I get someone a result in the most simple and effective way? So having systems in your backend to manage that, saying what the different steps are of your process, but then also bringing fun into it and how you can make that client experience a really enjoyable one, a really fun one. Like I know that someone once said to me how, Disneyland, I can't say I've ever been because as you can probably tell by now, I am not an American or Canada or all the things. I am an Australian. And so what they do is when you go through, they've kind of got this system going that when it's your birthday, they give you this badge or something, whatever it is, so that anyone around the park knows it's your birthday to be able to say happy birthday to you. So they've like created that template where it's giving customization, it's making you feel special, important, all the things, but they've streamlined it to the point where they never have to think about that again. There's just a way for them to know it. And so you kind of want to bring that into your business going, how can I allow someone to get a same or similar result in my process, in my systems, but it's not requiring a huge amount of lifting on my end because I know all the processes involved with that. So, and I think sometimes systems can be overcomplicated and like you create all these massive, project management and it's like bigger than Ben-Hur, and then you feel overwhelmed and stop, and then you just resort back to the original. What you want to do instead is just like start small and go, okay, when I do this next piece of client work, I'm going to just write out what I'm doing. And then from there, you look at each step and go, okay, how could I make that part even better? How can I make that part feel a bit easier? Do I need that part? Like just being inquiring of yourself and of the process, but not this like massive big street like experience that takes hours and days and months and tears and all the things. So because I have found myself in business sometimes too streamlined. I know that sounds wild, but like when it feels stale and like so contained and like every the project management just feels too clunky and too many things to manage, that's when it becomes a problem. So, and then the last phase is, of course, offboarding. Naturally, a client won't stay forever, even if you do have a retainer. So essentially the goal of this is to, one, thank them for working with you and give them that extra like surprise, delight, fun experience, but then also to really pitch about your referral system because, one client can mean multiple clients for you. So looking at how you can then make the most of this client in a referral way. Or just mentioning about you getting testimonials because that's going to help you get more referrals. So yeah, going through that process. So that was a big brain dump, but those are the 5 steps of the client journey.
Amazing. That was so good. And you brought so much good information there. So I want to break it down a little bit more for everyone listening, because really what you said, what I got from everything you said is really just to keep it simple. And I said this already on this podcast is that
Yes.
we overcomplicate it so much. And I do that too, especially when it comes to like the client onboarding and the execution is I think where obviously the most complication comes in about, like you said, the overly complicated project management systems and, thinking about our offers when we go back to what we were talking about before of making them too complicated, right? So how can we streamline? How can we make things as simple as possible? So when we talk about systems, what is like your favorite way to organize all of the execution and onboarding? Are there tools out there that you recommend, or what else is there?
Yeah, totally. I do think a big part of this is if you have a team or not, because the project management and the systems and processes do look quite different if you have, if you have a multiple team members, or if it's just you and one other team member, or if it's just you. So I think either way, you need to house your systems, because like one of the worst things you can do is business in your head, like having to think and remember where someone's at every point. Personally, I have found ClickUp to be the best in terms of like it's got ways to manage the project on if it's just me, and it feels simple and easy. But then it also has the capability to be ready for team. Or if you have a team, it is really good for team. So I really love and enjoy ClickUp. The other tools I find really helpful, Airtable, I use a lot in my business. And that is everything from getting like blog submissions each month and like all of that. There's so much you can do with Airtable. Even, housing your templates or systems if you want. Like there's so many aspects to Airtable I really enjoy. So that's more like the back end management of it that the client does see. In terms of the forward facing part of clients, I personally use Dubsado and have used it for many years in my business. And I enjoy it. It is clunky in some areas, I will say, but it does all the things I need it to do in terms of it automates everything on the client's end. It gets all the forms I need and all of that aspect. So you kind of do need both a forward-facing management for the client and then a back-end management for you and your team.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think it's important to introduce a system that is scalable, because a lot of people listening to this right now probably are one women shops, or maybe they have an assistant or something like that, but they're looking to scale and to grow. So moving project management systems when you're about to hire is going to be really overwhelming, right? You're like trying to juggle all these things. So if you can put a system in place now that allows you to add on team members easily, where everything is housed and you direct them in the right places, that's going to make your life so much easier. So a question I always get, and I've thought this myself many times, is I love project management systems and SOPs and all those fun things. What is your recommendation when people are jumping from system to system? Does that ever happen to any of your coaching clients?
Yeah, 100%. And I think sometimes I kind of like hinted to this earlier, sometimes we spend almost too much time on the systems part. But I have found I'm never going to get an A+ system the first try, because you want to create like a base for the system, but then you've got to tweak it as you go. And I think that's what people make the mistake of, is they're like doing this massive setup and then they try it in the first week and it doesn't work. And it's like, oh my gosh, I've got to change it. It's the tool, it's the process. But a lot of the times it's actually not the system itself, like the ClickUp, the whatever it is. Because you could literally make anything work if you really wanted to. Obviously there's things that, some can do and some can't. So yes, there's a better version of each one, but at the same time, if you're switching from project management to project management, to me, that's like procrastinating the actual work that you could be spending on getting more clients. And you'll very quickly know this really isn't working for us. So I think that's something to remember, is like, am I just trying to get an A+ system the first go? Because if I am, it's not going to happen. Or is it like, this actually really isn't working for me and I feel very overwhelmed. I have a solid amount of clients, but where it's too clunky, I'm missing things. Like, they're kind of the two camps that you've got to work out which one are you in. If it's the switching for the sake of switching, or, trying new things and all of that, there's nothing wrong with playing and testing out new programs and stuff, but you don't want that to take up the majority of your day and then it's taken away from client work or marketing to get new clients or that kind of thing. So I think as long as something is like a B-, C+, I'm good. And then I will go, okay, how do I need to tweak this, what isn't working. Because as you go to a new one, that's when, or you've set up and finalized or cleaned up a current one, you've got to give it like 30 days to really like make it robust. And as you're going, like, oh, we've got that step, I need to add that in, or this part's really clunky, how can we tweak this in our system, and going through that. But if you're just switching and switching, you're never going to find something you like. I still don't have a system that is like A plus, because every tech platform of some kind has a downfall. So I think that's a big part of it. But if it's like, I really am overthinking, I just can't find it, I don't enjoy this, it's not working for our team, then maybe it's time to switch after you've given it some solid time to work.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I love that you said you might be using it as a distraction from the other
Yeah.
important work, because we can all do that. I've definitely done that before. You've spent all day or a lot of time working a new system just to realize that, was this just busy work, or
Yeah.
was I avoiding something that really should have been done? So it's a good reminder for everyone listening, for sure. For sure.
Yes.
So I love that. Thank you for sharing those tips on that, because I know that's such a sticking point for people, especially when they're looking to scale and grow a team, is systems. And so there was a lot of good gold in that. So going back to the customer journey for a second, I really want to talk about what you said about putting some customization in there and personalization, and like the Disneyland birthday pins and all of that, because I think that is such an important thing. No matter if you run like a retainer business or a coaching business, having that personalized piece in there is really, really effective. And it's going to help with client retention, because we all want to work with people who we, one, like, and two, we feel like they're making us a priority and that we're special to them. So you talked a little bit about, personalization in your emails and things like that, but is there anything else that you've seen with your clients that really works effectively when it comes to this?
Yeah, like birthdays, actually, speaking of, are a great thing. Like, you get that information from their onboarding form, and then the system I use to deliver like presents, gifts, and stuff. I just put their birthday in, and they send me an automated reminder, to like order their gift, and so I never have to think about it. It's just in there. So I do think that having that kind of extra surprise and delight is huge. The other part is, as you're streamlined, it actually, because people are like, oh, I don't like templated emails, they sound stale and like all of that. Like, yes, I totally get that. But at the same time, I'm going to tell someone the next steps, no matter how customized it or not it is. And it's pretty much always the same thing. So I always like, if I'm going to do a task more than once, I'm going to create a template of some kind for it, because then that allows me to be more personalized. I'm not thinking about all the details. I'm then just thinking about how can I add this extra surprise and delight in. But the other part is really within your offer and that deliver phase. So it really depends, what the service is as to how you do this. But like, as an example, I like, my graphic designer is awesome. She's on I have her on retainer as well. And she just does extra things each month that I never ask directly for, but she's like, hey, I noticed this, I just quickly fix that part up. Like, it's not, directly in the package, but it's just thinking about how can I really help someone, or, if they've been like just following my clients on Instagram, and if they've been kind of not present for a week, just checking in with them, or, I think it's really special having that client relationship, and you can do that. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you are really delivering a result for them in a timely manner, and in a way that is easy on their end, you're going to have good client experience. And that's the biggest thing. But yeah, gifts are great. An extra kind of surprise and delights as you go is huge as well.
Yeah, I think that's great. And it doesn't have to be big things, like you said. It can be just those extra little deliverables, or even with my clients, I find that, just following them on social media and keeping up with their lives. If they have an anniversary with their spouse, or they just had a child, or whatever that may be, just reaching out with personalized messages and keeping up with those sorts of things goes a long, long way. So I love that.
100%. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, there was so much the stuff that you gave us in that 5 steps. So before we kind of end this off, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about the freebie that you have for them?
Yeah, so I have a free onboarding kit. So that's kind of that third step. And within the kit, I have my exact onboarding email that I use, a video of the form, like the onboarding form that I use and the questions I put in there to kind of help you form your own questions. So if you're feeling like your onboarding is clunky or things get missed or anything like that, then this kit basically does everything for you in terms of helping you think and set it up. So you can find it with hannahandco.com/onboarding. And yeah, it delivers straight to you. It has everything you need, videos, tech kind of ideas of how I set it up, and yeah, all the things.
Amazing. And I will make sure to put that link in the show notes below this episode for you guys as well. But I think that is such a great resource to have, because onboarding, if you don't do it right, the rest of your execution will be very tricky. You'll constantly have to go back to the client and be like, I need this, and just
Yes.
doesn't give a good customer experience. And I definitely have had that as a problem in the past. So having a good onboarding system is very crucial. So make sure to grab that below. So before we jump off, the last question I always like to ask my guests is, what is the biggest lesson you have learned in your business so far?
So many things. I feel like I could do a whole podcast episode just on this, and it's
Yeah.
hard to choose one. Um, but I think the biggest thing I have learned is this is like the theme of this episode, I feel. But the more simple my business, the easier it is. And I don't want that to make it sound like I'm trying to be lazy or, anything like that. But I have found whenever I am most overwhelmed in business or struggling the most financially with income, it's purely because I have overcomplicated something. I've tried too many marketing things, or, I've got too many offers or too many like deliverables or, all of that. And I just always come back to like, how can I create this business that simplifies all the things and makes it easy for me, brain work right, like mentally, capacity wise to manage, but also just enjoy it and have fun with it. If I'm not enjoying it, having fun, I've overcomplicated something. So yeah, the more simple my business, the easier it is to scale is the biggest thing I've learned.
Yeah, I love that so much, because we all created these businesses to enjoy, right? And to
100%.
create time freedom for ourselves and create something that we don't hate waking up every morning to do. So yeah, if it's not bringing you joy, go back to the drawing board and see how we can make it more simple. So great advice. I love it. Thank you so much for being on with us today. It was so great. And if anyone wants to contact Hannah for any of her services, I'll make sure to leave all of her information in the show notes below.
Thanks so much for having me. It was so fun.